Welcome to this live stream from Windows on the World, which will be in the archive, and you can watch it on Odyssey and YouTube. Please subscribe to us on Odyssey because that's where we like to get our audience to, because we don't use YouTube very much these days as they've taken down so much of our content. We're going to have a very interesting conversation tonight, and it's all about solutions. As I've said in the last several shows since we did the protocols of power, everything is really about what to do. And I even did a show called The Solution ? Which you can find windowsontheworld.net on the live shows page, which is where our Sunday show archive is. And do check out the archive on the website because it's huge. It goes back years and none of it is time sensitive. Even the stuff that was done 10 years ago is relevant now. In fact, if you go back there and listen to the previous shows, even I will learn a lot because I can't retain all the knowledge of everything we've done over the years. So yeah, do take a look at the protocols of power, which is in the archive at windowsontheworld.net. It's a whole series of shows which describes the present system and really how things are imposed, because this present form of governance that we are actually subjected to is nothing to do with political parties. It has nothing to do with national government, but it does have everything actually to do with local government, which is really the main point of this show, because that is where you can actually have some effect. And it is the thing that is most ignored. I've been talking about this since, well, 12 years ago at least. I had a website called landofthefree.co.uk where I reported on interactions with local councils, how things were changing, how change agents were being brought in, how the Saul Alinsky rules for radicals were being used against the public since 2010 when David Cameron announced the big society. So do listen to shows in the back catalogue. And as long ago as 2010, 2014, I was writing about this. There is actually an article called Big Society Change Agents. That was the start of what is happening now, because what's happening now is basically an infiltration process, and it all came about through the sustainable goals of the United Nations. And people just don't get this, that the UN global system is a local to global, global to local governance system, which was described in a document called Our Common Future in 1987, which you can download. It's on the free books page at windowsontheworld.net. And there was quotes in there, which I've read out in my talks. I won't go into them now, but basically they were saying a new form of governance was needed, which surpasses national government, which of course was the whole idea of sustainable development, because it goes in at a local level. And it goes in at a national level, of course. It goes through national governments all over the world. But where you can have something to do with what is actually being inflicted is local. So do have a listen to previous shows and also the protocols of power, the show which is called The Solution. On Sunday I did something called Voices of Sanity, which is also the title for this particular video. And we are going to be really tonight Voices of Sanity. We're going to be telling you what you can do about what's going on. Do have a look in the latest articles section, by the way, about the solution is there, and the real alternative. A real alternative is a series of videos and statements which may be really helpful. So do look at that. But really, if you don't know this stuff, it's like arguing in a different language, and that language has to be understood. And those people who get what I'm saying will enjoy what we're going to be covering in this show. I'm going to bring in our guest now, Madeline. We've done a show before. It was called Your Community of Communism. So we're going to be taking it a bit further tonight with how things are really implemented locally and how that is the absolute key to what is going on. Everything else is a distraction, including everything else that happens in these so-called truth movement groups. They are all time wasting, energy harvesting, and they go nowhere. How do I know this? Because I've been watching it from the sidelines at Windows on the World for over 15 years. So Madeline, yeah, we talked about the solutions locally, and you decided to get in touch because you had actually taken on your local council in a very interesting way. Can you first tell us a bit about that interaction and the sort of outcomes, because that's important. In other words, when you challenge these people on their own framework, in their own legal framework, then they are bound by law to actually respond. We know they don't, but that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, because what I found when I was taking on local councils was that they are petrified of people who know what they're doing and hold them to full account. So can you first tell us what you were trying to achieve?
Can I just say thank you to everyone who make any positive comments after the show, what we've done together, because that was
Oh,
really
yes.
very refreshing, and I am really grateful, really, because that means somebody there have an open mind and actually understand what's going on, and this is the most important thing. What we've done with our council, straight away when they declared the lockdown and introduced us to the Corona Act, I read the Corona Act. That was the most important thing. You're supposed to read the Corona Act. And unfortunately, majority, as we see to this day, they still don't know what is in the Corona Act. Corona Act allowed the councils to apply to declare the lockdown, but only on the particular base if they can prove that they have a pandemic in their area. So what we've done, we obtained all data showing us the cases of people who die of COVID, who was ill with COVID, and we approached the council with the question if they can show us the data what they use to justify the decision, because they're supposed to have this evidence to justify the decision of the lockdown. So Corona Act is clearly saying that the kind of documents what they need to obtain, this is a data, national data and local data. And only in this case, if this is a clear outbreak, they are allowed to declare the lockdown. And of course, if they declare the lockdown, they of course asking for refunds. This is another story. Well, I'm going to get to this point. So we approach them with the question, with the request of the documents what they use to justify the decision. Of course, they never answered. They was trying they replied to us. They were saying, we are very proud of what we've done. We should congratulate our friends. We handled the pandemic very well. So they never provide the answer. And of course, when you're going to the council meeting, you are not allowed to just ask them any question. You have your question printed. They already have the question 3 days before the meeting, and they are already prepared with the reply. So you can't really ask them again. Uh, so in this case, after the meeting, we request the policy review, approaching them again with the same question. So again, they sent us the ridiculous answer, saying nothing. That was a reply, not answer. So in this case, we ask for the document in a different way. We actually approach the Freedom of Information Act and ask if we can have the documents, what the council been using to justify the decision of the lockdown. And we put the list of the documents what they're supposed to have to justify the lockdown. We received the reply under the Freedom of Information Act confirming that they don't have any documents. And it's not only the district council, we asked for the same documents in Devon County Council, and of course they don't have the documents as well. We also ask for a risk assessment on the particular kind of regulation what they are supposed to have, and they of course don't have it. So practically, the fact that they declared the Corona Act in anywhere really, because this is the same story in every area of UK. If you check the data, that never was a pandemic, never. So practically, when they declared the lockdown, that was a fraud, because of course, soon when they declared the lockdown, they asked the government for millions and millions. Plymouth, for example, they asked for 128 millions just for a year 2021, and that was on the base of 5 people who die with COVID, not from COVID, with COVID. So, so this is a fraud. We can actually prove this. And we're still approaching them. It's not only the lockdown. After that, every single meeting, we're approaching them with questions, because every decision what they make, they have to justify. They are obligated by the government to justify decision, any decision what they do. It doesn't matter if this is about the housing. It doesn't matter if it is about the road. They have to justify, and that means they have to do consultation with people, for example, all this traffic, what they changing at the moment. That's supposed to be justified by the people agreement, and of course it's not. That was another story recently, which applied to some planning project. They, of course, like everywhere else, they trying to destroy any kind of history and culture. So they trying to destroy the historic town, and we also asked them for a consultation for the data, and they didn't want to provide them. They said they are not obligated to provide the data, but they said 800 people agree with the plans, and that means everyone else agree. So we've done our survey, but we actually really done our survey, not like the council. We actually performed the survey with people, and we have about 1,400 people, and we could actually justify that they lying, because our people who take the part in the survey, they provide their email addresses, they provide the data. On the other hand, when we asked the council to provide the data of the people who agree with them about the project, they said they can't do it because this is the breach of the privacy. Fantastic, really. So what you
Yes.
have to do, you have to just every single decision what they make, you have to challenge and check what the regulations are, what they supposed to fulfill, what was the requirement really, what they
Hold
supposed to
them
provide.
strictly to account under their
Yes,
own rules. And that is something which, if a lot of people did, would actually be very effective. Let's just take a sidestep here and talk about these low traffic neighborhoods that are being imposed. Now, this has been going on since 2013. I think Waltham Forest was the first borough to actually have this mini Holland scheme that was later extended to Oxford through the same change agent, Clyde Lokes, who imposed it in Walthamstow, the trained useful idiot Department of the Environment. And basically, they did the same thing in Oxford, and they called it livability. Now, people are up in arms going, nobody agreed to this. Well, you didn't object to it. That's your problem. Now, they have these consultations, which, as we know, are phony. They use Delphi technique to push them through, and they tell a pack of lies because this is an agenda which is not coming through them. It's nothing to do with them, but it does come through the policies of your local council. So basically, when you hold them strictly to account, they have to respond by law. But if you put on the pressure and you have as many as, say, even as little as 30 people locally, you could probably take the whole thing down, because as you've just said, you could go out there, do your own surveys, and they say, well, 65% are in favor. Well, our survey says this, and then you take it from there. But people have to get off their sofas and basically start doing it. And I've been saying this for 15 years, and you've just tried it out. And yes, they do run a mile. But the whole point is it all starts and finishes locally. So if you're talking about people in Switzerland, if you're talking about Klaus Schwab, if you're talking about people in these positions who are basically just front puppets, you're wasting your time. So stop doing it and get on with things that matter. And that is really the message of what I've been saying for a long time. But the thing is that it's all down to a small group of people in local areas. So, yes, would you like to expand on that?
absolutely.
Mm,
You definitely have to focus locally, and you said everything about this, Mark, in your programs before. I can only confirm
yes,
what you've been saying from my own experience, because what we've done in
yes,
Poland, we how we start the solidarity, how we start to dismantle the system. We went locally. We went locally because the same system what we have now, it was the same system was actually already run in Poland, and the system actually is everywhere in the world. They run the same system. It doesn't matter
yes.
how they call them. If this is a council, or this is the union, or this is whatever in different country. This is the same system. And
Mm,
what always bothered me, and I think this is the best proof, and this is something what everyone should understand. Whenever you hear about any decision, any new legislation, any new proposal, you always hear people want, people need, people are afraid. Who are those people? Who are those people? And those people actually what the media are talking about and the government is talking about, it's not us. those people are the councils, because the councils are there to represent the people. So in this case, you just have to make sure that you, the people, really talking to the government, because at the moment the government talking to council and they just using the people words. So it's simple. You just have to go to these people, to council, and as Mark said, you have to challenge them with everything what they deciding. Why agreeing with them? You don't have to. You really don't have to. They just sitting there and think they are untouchable. But in fact, you should be there. You should be there. It is simple. Just stand up as a candidate for a council and just replace them. If not, just catch them on the lies. And what we're trying to do, we actually obtain so many evidence of their fraud and lies, really. So we're putting everything together at the moment, and we're going to send this to the Secretary of State, because at the moment this is the only person who can take the council down without of the normal election. She can call, she or he, I don't know who is the Secretary of State at the moment, to be honest. In this new
Well, the thing
government.
is, it doesn't really matter. You can just look that up. I mean, it doesn't matter who these puppets are.
Yeah,
It's of no consequence who they are.
yeah.
Just target who you need to target. Now, another thing is that we have talked about before is that in 2010, it was announced that Saul Alinsky rules for radicals were going to be used, yes, against the public. Now, they said this is a way of empowering people. It's not. It's a way of attacking people who are deemed to be in opposition to these plans. And what I would say to everyone out there is your so-called community, by the way, whenever you see the word community, it's not you, it's them, it's they who are masquerading as this kind of bottom-up pyramid, which is actually top-down. So whenever you see community, it's got nothing to do with you. That word has been hijacked to mean an imposition from above, which is there, and basically you are not allowed to challenge it because they say it's a community. That's the trick. It's like when they say diversity, it means you will join in whether you like it or not, because an empowered group will attack you if you don't. That's how it works. Everything works in a very simple way. And if you do this, expect attacks. However, what I would say is this: the people in these councils, when you start actually asking them serious questions or going after them, they start to get really scared. When they're scared, they make even more mistakes, so you can have even more fun.
Yeah, we actually, that's what I'm saying. We obtain so many documents against them because they make so many mistakes. They send us
Yes.
emails where they should never say things what they said. Every single reply, what they was, because we was pushing and pushing with the same questions all the time. So we are very happy that they reply because they make mistakes. And unfortunately, when we try to encourage other people to do it, we just have the same answer from everyone. Oh, what's the point? They will never reply. They will never change anything. They will change everything. That's exactly the point. You have to put the pressure on them. You have to make the changes.
Yes, I mean, I can give you a couple of examples. There's a thing called a single person's discount validation form, which people still think they have to fill in as a sole owner of a property because they monitor you to see if there's third-party mail going there. I got that taken down nationally, but the case was wiped off because it was a council tax court case, and I won the case. And basically, that meant that the council were issuing a document by a third party, which was not a council document, which was a breach of the law, because the third party were imposing a fine, which they can't do. Only a court can issue a fine. Stuff like this. I mean, I can go into that case sometime because it's absolutely relevant even now. But the point is that I just went into court and challenged it, and they had to run a mile. They didn't even get costs. And Waltham Forest Council, when I was there, they put a site called Grime Busters, and they actually put somebody up there who dropped a cigarette end in the street saying, we want to talk to this woman about giving her a fine because she wouldn't give a name and address to a private company called NSL, which she's not actually required to do. So when I phoned up the council, I said, who put that up? Who put this woman on there? And said, we want to talk to her, we're going to give her a fine. And they gave me the name of the person. I phoned him up. I said, who indemnifies you to put people's pictures up there? Who indemnifies you, underwrites you to do that? And he says, well, she's obviously done this, obviously done that. I said, you weren't there, you don't know. And you are basically using this to put people's pictures up in public. who are accusing them of crimes, which you can't, you're not allowed to do that. And he goes, well, I think we are. By the next day, the website had been pulled. These are just simple examples of things that anybody can do, right? Now, when it comes to all this stuff, the impositions of the no car stuff and what's been happening, I've been following that for 15 years. I saw the change agents coming in. Those people are amongst you. Your so-called community is fully infiltrated by these people before it starts. That's how they do it. That's how they gain what they call consensus, group consensus, which merely means that it looks as though everyone agrees because you were sat there and didn't object. Because you didn't object, they assumed that you agreed to it. And then they'll say 65% people were in favor. And that's even before the thing is actually put up for public consultation. That's how audacious these people are, but their audacity will disappear once they are confronted on their own public liability for what they're doing and how you actually apply it. So you need to look at Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals, the 13 rules for radicals, because that's what they use against you. Use it back on them and it does work. So what they do is they relentlessly target people as well, but that can be got over. I've been through all this stuff. I've been helping organizations. I was the victim of an attack by not only the council, but change agents, radical left-wing groups. Well, let's just say they are part of the Global Action Plan because people call them left-wing. They're not left-wing. There's no left and right. These are just pressure groups which are set upon you. Now, the thing is that they're allowed to operate outside the law. Of course they are. People don't know that, but the police will assist them because it's the community policing. Community policing means that whatever's good for the community. Remember what I said, the community's not you, it's them. And that's the trick.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. They are the people, not us. We are the taxpayers, and they are the people. They are the people. The press is always talking. People want, people suffer, people this, people that. I always ask the question, always, who are those people really? But yeah, the solution, absolutely, the solution is only in the council. You have to just start approaching your council, because otherwise we just going nowhere. We're getting to the point at the moment, to the fake victory leaders, and we're going to see them more and more. We're going to see people who will be claiming victory, that we're actually winning, and they're only going to continue the agenda under the different kind of umbrella, after the victory umbrella, freedom umbrella.
Yes, we're bringing it down to basics tonight, I think, and that's the thing, you see, because people don't like hearing about this stuff because it's not glamorous. It's not it's not talking about the Illuminati. It's not talking about people that are untouchable, because those people, if they're untouchable, well, why are you talking about them? You need to be talking about what's on your doorstep, because they're doing the work of those people that you are posting pictures of. So why post pictures of people like that when the people who are actually implementing it are on your own doorstep? You can go and talk to them. You can go and harass them. You can go and give them a hard time. By that, I don't mean illegally harass them. I mean, they will call it harassment when you ask them a question, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They call us, they straight away, when we approach them with the Corona Act, we've been actually called anti-vaxxers, and that was even in the local newspaper straight away. They don't like it. But anyway, yes, absolutely, you have to, I don't know how many times we will be saying this, but you really have to approach your council. And what you also have to do, stop talking about nothing all day on the social platform. Approach the general public, because everyone have an issue. Forget about the lockdown. We have a much more serious issues here. The agenda is actually about destroying completely the culture, completely destroying us and the culture, everything. So everyone have issues. If people who maybe believe in the vaccination, they are still not happy with the council, because the council is destroying their historic building. So go on the street, talk to people, ask them if they're happy with the council. Try to do something which is alternative. We do have an alternative. We in the beginning we started by launching independent council. We call ourselves independent council. We actually had our own board, and we start talking to people, and that was in 2021. We started talking to people on the street. We was just saying, this is the regulation, what they're bringing. This is the idea about walking with your dog on the 1 meter lead, which is absolutely ridiculous. Imagine two person 6 foot something walking with the little dog. and with the lead 1 meter. So you can see how clever the legislation are, what they're trying to actually put. But anyway, it's so many of this kind of nonsense from the council, and people see this. So you have to go on the street, talk to the businesses, and uh, try to stand up as a candidate for election. Um, we struggle with the independent council because we didn't have a support from our freedom fighters, of course, because we've been too close to the truth. So there are so many people who don't want
I think we
us
should
to
bring
go to the
this up
truth.
as a point, Madeline, because all groups are fully infiltrated.
Yeah.
Anything on social media is monitored, and there are change agents in there controlling the narrative of everything in those groups. Anything of importance will not be allowed. You can talk about what's going on and the things that they want you to talk about. And then, of course, you can get energy harvested into issues of absolutely no importance, which has happened over the past 15 years in every single one of those groups, because I've monitored it. I've stepped away from what they call the alternative media. It's merely an echo chamber of narcissists, chancers, wannabes, grifters, and people selling mugs and T-shirts and talking new age waffle, or just talking about what's going on. What's the point of that? None. Got bored with it. So I decided to do that series, The Protocols of Power. I've honed everything down. Then when you've said everything, what else do you say? And that was what my last show was about. What I can do is explain again and in detail how things actually work, because I know the system. I know exactly how the system works. As you say, Madeline, it's a template. Once you know the template, you know the system. If you don't know the template, you don't know the system. If you're talking about political parties, if you're talking about these groups which are steering you nowhere, you're absolutely being energy harvested. And that's exactly what this is about. It's energy harvesting, it's technocracy. They want you to be engaged on social media, posting pictures of these people and talking about rubbish all day long, because if it's on social media, it's rubbish. It's a waste of time. As you say, it's better to go and find people who you can form groups with locally, particularly the self-employed who've been battered, because they have not been infiltrated. And the thing is that when you start doing this, you'll find out how the system works, because you'll find out how the Saul Alinsky rules for radicals will come at you, and you'll see the change agents, and you'll be able to actually see for yourself how things work, because that's the best way to do it. I can talk about this stuff for years. No one's really that interested in the UK. I had the solution to this 15, 20 years ago, what we were actually doing in courts. It wasn't common law, Malcolm stuff either. But the point is that there was small groups of people who were having massive effect. But guess what? You never heard anything about them through the fake alternative media, because they're not interested in real things. They're interested in stuff that they can talk about, that they're removed from, because most of them do not want any solutions, because they want to talk about hopium, or they want to talk to people who are the latest so-called freedom fighters, or the doctors for COVID ethics. Those doctors for COVID ethics will be talking about that in 20 years' time. It's a bit like the 9/11 movement. They still have their pet little things about what they want to talk about. I spoke to this group, and this one doctor, and he has weekly meetings, absolutely energy harvesting himself and his guests into exhaustion for no reason whatsoever. And I wrote him a letter, and I actually printed it on the website windowsontheworld.net. And the letter is on there, and it's called The Enablers of Apathy. Look up The Enablers of Apathy at windowsontheworld.net, and that is what these people are. They are wearing people out. I said, in 6 months' time, when you're exhausted and you've failed, I want you to remember this email, because I told you in the first place that you need to look at how the system actually works. But what do? They've buried their head in the sand, because they're part of the system. All their lives, they've sucked off the teat of the government, and they think there is a government. They don't think there's a world government. They don't know about global governance. They don't know anything about the legislation that we've talked about, and they become useful idiots as well. So they're energy harvested. So the whole thing's about energy harvesting. And if you're spending all day looking at these alternative media, well, what are they? What are they? Echo chambers. If you're looking at that all day, you're wasting your time, because meanwhile, everything's marching on. What's been achieved by these infiltrators who set up these protests in Trafalgar Square? Nothing. And one of them, I said straight away, she is a police informer. I could tell by the look on her face she was a police informer. Guess what? She's a police informer. You tell people these things over and over again, and they still go through it. They say, oh no, but they're saying the right things. They're telling me what I want to hear. Well, of course, counterintelligence always tells you what you want to hear. Then they steer you into where they want you to go. Very simple.
One of the things what they always saying to people, what people really want to hear, and this, I have to actually say this because this is very important. One of the things which is the catchy phrase is, we don't want a politician, we want people to run the country, we don't want any political party. Just think about this, just think what you're saying, because there's so many people saying this, and just think what you're actually saying. If you don't have a politician parties, you have communist system, you have people
Yes.
running the country. So that's
Yeah.
exactly what they telling you. They putting you on the road to the communitarian system, and
Yes.
you, the freedom fighters, you're just following them, thinking that, yeah, we're winning, we're winning. But it's not. You're actually helping the agenda. You can't have a country without a politician. You can't. So
Yeah, someone's put a
and
really good
same,
comment in Retro Landscape. Imagine all the people who've paid off their mortgages, if they actually started on this. Then you see, this is the point. This is the point, and it's the issue which I've covered in my shows, is that the complacency of humans is unnatural. It's absolutely unnatural how complacent they are. Complacent, then they become compliant, then they become complicit. And basically, they don't see anything outside their own reality. Well, the thing is that I've always been an observer. I never see myself in the reality. I look at it from the outside. And once you do that, you can start really looking at how this system operates. And it's dead simple. I've been talking about it for years. Everything, as I say, is on the website. I don't really want to keep going over this stuff, but if it's going to be something that's useful and that's going to work, I will do it. But so far, I've seen little indication that that's what people actually want. But now, as you say, it's very far advanced. I think there's a growing number of people who would actually do something. And that's where I think the fun is. The fun is in the engagement. You've got to enjoy it. As Saul Alinsky himself said, who is actually the writer of their rules, he said, a drag is a drag. If it's something your people don't enjoy, don't do it. So you have to have fun with it as well. And that is very important. It has to be something which comes from a very strong point within you of morals and a kind of inner strength, if you like. I've talked about all this stuff in my shows, obviously, and it's part of it. But the real point here is that what is there is a facade which can easily be broken. And
yeah,
if people had actually got together, they could have stopped those low traffic neighborhoods almost straight away if they knew what they were doing. But no, they blame the Tories.
yeah, yeah,
They blame the Tories for what carried out in every country in the world to a lesser or greater extent.
yeah, yeah. That's the tragedy. I'm going to what I said a few minutes ago about, about
Yes.
having the democratic council, and then when we struggle, because of all these people what we're just talking about, and the closer we've been to the target, the more obstacles, of course, we've seen, and it is all the time like that. So we struggle with the number. We went to the point when we actually could pay the council down if we have a numbers, because you in every single council you need particular number of signature to dismiss the council. If you have some kind of issues with the council, you can prove that they've done something wrong and people don't want them. So you have in our case that was 5,000 signature. We never got that 5,000 signature because of course the petition, which is not a petition, this is the legal document what you have to go through. This is the kind of regulation what the council have. Whenever we was sharing this, that we of course we've been approached with the criticism, and some of us was blocked on the freedom platforms because they don't really want to talk about it. They don't want you to do this. You have to go for a communitarian system. So anyway, we didn't have the support what we supposed to have, but I always um, I always observed David Carton from 2005, and I knew he formed the Heritage Party. And in the 2020, actually, I was thinking maybe we should get in touch, and maybe if they have somebody in Devon, maybe we should actually talk to these people and get together. But they didn't. They didn't have any kind of representative in Devon. But recently they become being bigger, and months ago I did see several of his chats and interview, and I decided to get in touch with him, and I am the last person in the world who actually would follow or support any kind of political party. But I had a word with David in several kind of exchange of idea and views. And I personally joined the Heritage Party, and I think they are actually our last chance to do something, because they are very much like the equivalent of the Solidarity at the moment. And David Carton is the only politician I know that it can't be twisted, because he is going with morals. He doesn't really care about anything else. He stick to the same morals what he was talking about in 2005. He's still on the same picture. So we support them. And in this case, this is kind of this kind of strategy, you can say, because in this case we become bigger and stronger. So, and in this case also we have the opportunity to take part in the election, which is coming in May. So we're going to stand as a candidate, and we're going to look for more candidates in the area. And in this way, we're going to take the guns down. We're definitely going to take them down.
Yeah, well, this is interesting. I mean, when I saw David Curtin speaking about what he called the cultural Marxism program, he was spot on. I've never seen any politician doing that. Now, I don't advocate any particular politician either. And I think that what you're saying is basically strategy is everything. So you have to put your support where it can have some effect. So it's nothing to do with a right and left issue. It's where we are now. Because if you can gain contacts and get people networking through even that party, that's great, because it all comes back to this local issue. And the thing is that I've been talking about this for so long. I have loads of information I could give on it, but it's all in those previous shows. I mean, Eric von Essex, who's on here tonight, we talked about it years ago. And then before that, I was talking about this in 2008, 2009. But that's the thing. It's an advanced stage now. And if people can actually pull their finger out and do something, they'll actually find it incredibly rewarding, rather than being in this fear-driven internet gulag, which is a complete and utter waste of time. Because I found that when I set up the Discord group, I get a lot of interesting emails from people as well. And there's a lot of brains out there. I know I talk about this a lot, that the dumbing down process has been very successful in the main. Of course it has. But there's still people out there with sharp brains. And I don't know about you, but I like to engage with people who've got a bit of brain cells left, or some brain cells, because otherwise it's just absolutely frustrating talking to these idiots. And most of these people in these groups have either been captured into New Age or common law or some other distraction, which is put there for them to be distracted by, because all of that was taken over years ago. I think we were the first people who went into court and put a birth certificate in the dock, by the way. So I do know what I'm talking about here. It was great fun. It's a pantomime. Yes, the magistrates do leave the bench, but guess what? The liability order still arrives, because it's not a court matter. It's an administrative matter. It's meant to be a court matter. But then these people end up, this is how the infiltration starts. They will come into groups and they will then start taking over and giving you these fake solutions. And it happens with all of them. So basically get out of collectivism, but get into individuals working together collectively. Totally different thing.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, I, I am far away from promoting a party. I'm just saying what we've done. So I'm going to share it with you. And I actually advise people to join the party, because I think we don't have a resistance. We don't have any kind of resistance movement in UK, and that's why we're going nowhere. So this is the only way to form proper, legitimate resistance. And I recently we went for a conference, for a first Heritage Party conference that was just last week. And as you said, Mark, it's so wonderful, really, to be surrounded by people who actually are really truly awake, who have some kind of idea how the system works. We can have a normal conversation without any kind of nonsense. And that's what's happened at the conference. I was really, really pleased with everyone who I met there. That was over 100 people there, and that was just really like back to normal. I forgot how this feels, but it really, these people, what I met there was fully aware what is happening, and they also have a plan. They know what they're going to do. Everyone is going to the same direction. Everyone is going to approach the council. Everyone is going to stand as a candidate in different parts of UK. So we have the same vision. We have the same goal. So it doesn't matter if if even the manifesto doesn't suit everyone in some area of the manifesto. It doesn't matter. We are not in the position at the moment when we can choose from anything really, because we are not heard. We have to be first. We have to be heard, and then we can actually make some changes. At the moment, nobody is listening to us, so we must make sure that we are actually in the position when we can speak and our voice is going to be heard. So that's why we need to create some kind of resistance and get together, because this is the only way. At the moment, it's the only way. That was different kind of opportunities 2 years ago. At the moment, we don't have any, and we need really. It's a desperation now to just get people who are awake, who have some common sense, just get together, join the Heritage Party, because this is the resistance. This is the resistance, and then stand up as a candidate, because then you got the proper powerful position to actually challenge the council and replace them, and then you will be in the government.
A good way of deducing who is actually worthwhile is how much they get attacked. So the more people get attacked, the more you should take notice of them. Paul's just put in something very interesting. My experience here is that city councils themselves are very poorly informed. Often they don't know their own system and rules. Their vulnerability is their disinterest and their own self-interests they follow while they are there. If you are informed and know their games, you stand strong. Exactly, Paul. That's it in a nutshell. They don't know what they're doing. They're arrogant, they're lazy, and they hide from all liability. But if you attend those meetings and you start calling out what they're doing, and even if they're using Delphi technique, which you should look up, which is a facilitator or co-facilitator, all these council meetings that push through all these new developments are using Delphi technique. These people are actually private companies that the council have employed. And that is another thing you need to really look into. If you don't know this stuff, you don't know how the system works. And Eric's put in the system's rotten to the core. That's beside the point. We're not talking about that. We're talking about what you do in response to what's going on. Because I know this stuff will work. Because even if you dip your toe in and have a go, it does work. And that's the point.
Yeah, yeah. We really have to just get rid of the councils everywhere, everywhere, every single part of UK. We just have to replace them, because and yeah, it is true that majority of the councillors, they really don't know what they're doing. They really don't know much what is going on, because they are not the decision makers. They are there only to vote, and they usually just will vote yes if this is necessary, because the people who are making decisions, this is the executives, this is the executive boards, and the other councillors are just the numbers, really.
Yes, I mean, people put in these comments like most of them are Freemasons. Look, this stuff is a distraction. They're trained in the principles of sustainable development. Yes, if you go back 100 years, you can see what the plan is. We're not allowed to talk about the plan on air, by the way, because it's a conspiracy theory, but you can find it on the website. So the point is that all this is about focus. And if you're focused, you can achieve stuff. If you're not focused, you achieve nothing, which is why people in groups so far and for many years, when they're trying to do something, get nowhere. And the people who are running this know exactly how it works. They know how to split up groups. They know how to split up all protest groups. All protests in the UK are led. They are all steered, and they are all allowed to happen. Because if they were going to change anything, they wouldn't be allowed to happen. So that's quite an important point. And all this infiltration stuff is what nobody really talks about. And I've become a bit of an expert in it because I've seen it from all sides. I've actually seen it from the sides of people who had small charities, who've had their venues taken over. I've seen it from when you actually start out and you find something which they are uncomfortable about, and even to the head-on engagement in court. I've been through it all with them. And one thing I can say is that they're very audacious, but there's nothing behind it.
Yeah. I just want to remind one thing, about Poland, because we dismantled the system for only one reason. I said that before. People put differences on the side, really. That was many different movements and have different idea about lots of stuff, but they have the same goal. So they form resistance. We need to have resistance. We need to communicate. We need to go for the same goal. We need to know the system and do exactly the same everywhere in every part of the UK. And that is actually challenging the local councils, the local authorities, because this is our government. They are the will of the government. This is the decision making people. So the only answer is really just create the resistance. Just approach these people who destroying your life.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, Eric's putting civil disobedience does work. We're not disputing that. We're telling you that it's all local. So there's no point protesting a government because it's got nothing to do with the government. It doesn't matter which government is in power, because when they bring their puppet of choice in, Keir Starmer, things will escalate even faster. So this is the point. And all of these unions, by the way, were all taken over by Marxists years ago. I know a few of these union leaders. They are full on Marxists. And
Yeah.
the whole point is that that's part of this new system. I mean, they've updated it now. I call it communitarianism because that's what it is. It means that there is a consensus which is applied from above and it masquerades as community. Very, very simple. Whenever you see the word community, it's not you, it's them imposing it on you. Quite simple. There is no community. That's the trick.
Yeah. As you said so many times, Mark, this is a global to local, local to global, global to local, local to global. And people still talking about the central government. And I don't know really how to explain this again, but I was saying about the lockdown, for example, the Corona Act, how this works, any legislation, how the legislation works. It's people. I said that, like I said before, people want, people need, people are scared. So everything based apparently on people needs. So any legislation, any new legislation proposal, apparently it's coming from us. We apparently want the lockdown. We apparently want to pay bigger taxes because that's what people want. And that's what is going to the government. The government actually receiving some kind of request and proposal from the local government saying, "Oh, people want this. We really suffering with this kind of problem in our area, and people complaining." So that's how this works. This is legislation. This is not the people on the top. What you're thinking about, the few little prime minister and MPs. That's the local authorities. That's where everything is coming from, and then it's going up. And then the government is debating. Oh yeah, that's a good proposal because people need this to be happy. And when the legislation is granted, then what is follow next? The budget. So the budget is transferred from the central government to the local authorities, which actually is the global authorities. So now you know how the Great Reset is happening. The
Yeah,
transfer of
exactly.
power.
Yeah. We're going to keep this quite short. I mean, this is just a bit of information and a bit of a way that people can start to maybe think about getting out of collectivism. But I've been talking about this for so many years. In a way, it would be good to see some kind of thing forming nationally. That would be good fun. And then I could get more involved in something worthwhile. I mean, the whole idea of this broadcast was just to give you a bit of insight into how things can be actually changed. It's the C word, the C word that they like to use. And the shows that I've been doing over the past several months have all been on solutions. So go back into the archive. We're going to keep this quite short. Is there anything that you want to add, Madeline?
I just want to add that, we found the solution. We really found the solution. We work on the solution for 2 years. Unfortunately, we didn't have a support from people because people are not interested in the solution. And, gradually we're getting to these people who are interested in the solution. So now we're building stronger resistance. And that's why we personally, we support the Heritage Party because, David Carton is an honest man. He was working against the agenda for many, many years. And I have to say that things looks very positive and promising now. I am personally more positive, after seeing this kind of people at the conference and talking to David. So if I can recommend, if anyone want to do anything with the council and actually stand as a candidate, join the Heritage Party now and just let's get together and just get them down.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to finish this off. And if anybody out there wants to contact me, do it through info@windowsontheworld.net. Live show every Sunday, 9:30 p.m. UK time on the live shows page. Do help support us if you can, and do download The Heretics of London, the Smithfield Martyrs. It's on the website. The links are all there, and please subscribe to us on Odyssey. That's it for this broadcast. I'll probably be back soon. I haven't done any live streams for a while, but these are, I think, quite interesting and definitely necessary. So thanks everyone for joining us tonight. Some interesting comments there, and hope it's been useful. Thanks a lot, everyone, and good night.